In today's lecture session, we will discuss one of the most important topic, that is consumer behavior. So I have divided this topic into 3 lecture sessions so that it is easier to understand. The first lecture session will cover the introduction, the basic introduction, the roles, the dimensions and the importance of consumer behavior. The second lecture session will cover various factors that influence the consumer buying process. And finally, in the third lecture session, we will discuss the consumer buying process or the consumer purchase process in complete detail. Consumer behavior. So let's first define the term consumer. So consumer is basically an individual or a group of people who buys products or services for their personal use and not for any kind of resale. We can say that the consumer is the person who is the decision maker and whose decisions are influenced by various kinds of marketing efforts that are carried out by the marketers. We can say that the consumer behavior is basically the study of individuals or the groups or the organizations' purchase activities. In consumer behavior, we study how the consumer takes buying decisions. So in this lecture session, we will discuss about various dimensions of consumer behavior, different roles played by the consumer, and why consumer behavior is of great importance for every business organization. Consumer behavior. So let's first define the term consumer. So consumer is basically an individual or a group of people who buys products or services for their personal use and not for any kind of resale. We can say that the consumer is the person who is the decision maker and whose decisions are influenced by various kinds of marketing efforts that are carried out by the marketers. We can say that the consumer behavior is basically the study of individuals or the groups or the organizations' purchase activities. In consumer behavior, we study how the consumer takes buying decisions. So in this lecture session, we will discuss about various dimensions of consumer behavior, different roles played by the consumer, and why consumer behavior is of great importance for every business organization. In order to study the consumer behavior, we need to study the dimensions of consumer behavior. These dimensions gives us the detail that how a consumer behaves while buying something. It's quite simple and easy to understand, and I have tried to include examples to make it more simpler. So the first dimension is who buys. So it is one of the important dimensions of consumer behavior. It includes basically 3 factors: who makes the decision for the purchase, who does the actual buying, and who does the actual use of the products. So in case of consumer goods, the decisions to purchase product is usually taken jointly by the family members, which include the husband, wife or the children. So marketing gets affected by the question who buys. Here who buys includes all the 3 factors, that is who makes the decision for purchase, who does the actual buying, and who actually uses that product. And marketing programs and strategies, especially the promotional and advertising programs, are designed in mind by keeping in mind that who buys a particular product. The second dimension is when consumer buys. So it is one of the important dimensions for marketers or the advertisers to understand the time when consumers buy goods. There are certain kind of items that are mostly purchased during a particular season or that are purchased during a particular festive seasons, like Rakhis are purchased during the month of July or August when there is a Raksha Bandhan. We prefer buying sweets during the Diwali season. So it is important for marketers to understand when the consumers buy any kind of product. Next comes how consumers buy. So it refers to the buying habits of consumers. Some consumers buy the things in cash, while some uses the credit card, some uses the EMI system. So if the number of persons who buy the products on credit is large, then the marketing people should launch attractive credit card schemes. And similarly, some customers prefer to buy packed goods rather than unpacked products. So it's responsibility of the marketers or the people who are planning the advertising or marketing strategies to understand how the consumers prefer buying. Next dimension is where does consumer buy. So it refers to the place where consumer decides to purchase the and the place from where the actual purchase is made. So usually in the case of costly products, the decisions to purchase the product is taken at the home while discussing with the family. But in case of less costly products, it is also possible that a customer does not go to a market with a prior decision at home, but decides to buy the product at the shop at once. So sometimes the consumer take decisions of purchase at home, but sometimes they go to a particular shop and buy a product. Nowadays, with more increased competition, the online buying process has also gained importance over the offline buying process. The last dimension is why does consumer buy. So why refers to the buying motive. A person buys the goods to fulfill his want. If the product offered by a business or a marketer unit does not satisfy the buying motive of the consumer, the customer will not buy that particular product. So the marketers must identify the exact motives of a customer buying that particular product. So in the end, we can conclude that if we have a complete knowledge about these dimensions of consumer behavior, then we can easily design our marketing program strategies that can influence the consumer buying decisions. The consumer participates in buying process through different types of roles depending upon the requirements of the situation. So these are 6 buying roles of consumers. The first one is initiator. So the initiator is basically a person or a consumer who first starts and thinks of an idea of buying a particular product or a service. Then second comes the influencer. So influencer is a person who influences the buying decision of others. For example, the kids or the children of in a family influence their family members in buying toys or any other electronic items. Then the third is the decider. So decider is a person who ultimately determines any part or the whole of a buying decision, whether to buy, what to buy, how to buy, when to buy and where to buy. Children are the deciders for buying the toys, and then the females are the deciders for buying the kitchen items, and the head of the family is mostly the decider for buying the some like a durable or a luxury items. Then the fourth comes the gatekeeper. So the person or the organization which acts as a filter on the range of sources which enters the decision choice set is a gatekeeper. We can say that they filter the range of products that are to be bought. Then is the buyer. So the buyer is the person who actually purchases. Buyer may be the decider or he may be some other person. For example, the children are the deciders for purchasing toys, books, but the purchases are made by their parents. So we can say here the parents are the exact buyers. And the last role is the user. So user is the person who actually uses the consumer products or services. For example, the toys are bought by the parents which are used by the children. So we can say that marketers' task is to study the buying process and its participants and their role in the buying process. The marketing people should clearly study and identify the role and the level of participation of a consumer in buying process. So far in this lecture session, we have learned that consumer behavior have different dimensions and different roles are played by consumer during the purchase process. Now let's discuss the importance of studying the consumer behavior. Designing of production policies. The study of consumer behavior affects the production policies of a business organization. The consumer behavior discovers the habits, the preferences, the taste of consumers, and such helps the business to plan and develop its products according to the consumer specifications. So we can say it is necessary for a business organization to be in regular touch with the changes in consumer behavior so that necessary changes in the products may be made. Then comes the price policies. So the buying behavior or the consumer behavior is equally important in designing the pricing policies. The buyers of products purchase only particular articles or products that are cheaper than the competitive articles available in the market. In such a case, price of a products cannot be erased. Whereas on the other hand, some of the articles are purchased because it enhances their prestige and the social status of the persons. For example, in case of Apple phones, people prefer buying for their prestige and social status. So the study of consumer behavior is very important, or we can say very crucial for designing pricing strategies. Then decisions regarding the channels of distribution. So the goods or the services which are sold and purchased solely on the purpose of low price must have cheap and economical distribution channels. And in case of some articles which require after sale services like ACs, TV sets, then your refrigerators must have different channels of distribution. And the decisions regarding channels of distribution are taken on the basis of studying the consumer behavior. Then the fourth one is designing of sales promotion programs or strategies. A study of consumer behavior is very vital in making decisions regarding sales promotions. It enables the producer or the marketer to know what motive the consumer is giving importance for buying a particular kind of product. The marketer who takes decision regarding the brand, the packaging, the advertising, the promotions is based on the buying behavior of the consumer. So we can say that all the marketing, advertising or promotional campaigns are made by studying the nature of consumer behavior, that how the consumer buys a particular kind of product. Then is tapping of new markets. So a study of a consumer behavior help the businesses to understand the consumer needs, their expectations, their problems, and this knowledge help the marketers to exploit the markets which are still untapped or where the business is low as compared to the competitors. Then is the diversification of consumer preferences. Nowadays the consumer has become more diversified. His taste and preferences are ever changing. So this shift has occurred due to availability of more choice. The study of consumer behavior is very important to understand these kind of changes, and the marketers nowadays have to be fully updated regarding the change in buying pattern of consumer behavior. Then is the introduction of new products. Rapid introduction of new technology, technical advancements. So more and more new products with additional features are entering the market. So the marketers have to be updated in order to meet the consumer requirements. So the proper study of consumer behavior also helps the marketers or the business organization to implement latest marketing concepts so that these concepts enable their business to grow and also helps in increase of sales and profits. So we conclude that every business, whether it's small or big, the detailed study of consumer behavior is required. The success and failure of a business organization depends upon the how the business understand the consumer needs. So we can say it is the consumer who make or break a business. Hope now you have understood the need of studying the consumer behavior. So this is all in this introduction lecture on consumer behavior. Check your progress by attempting these questions. For any kind of notes or feedback, kindly mail me. Thank you.